Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the F-Stoppers post-production tutorials. In this installation, I will show you a couple of ways I use Photoshop's Liquify filter. I use Liquify quite a bit when I retouch, whether it be to reshape clothing, hair, or facial features. The key to having success with Liquify is to use it sparingly and at a very low strength. Let's take a look at our options with Liquify. The Liquify dialog has many tools inside it, but I've pretty much gotten by just using two of the tools, the forward warp tool and the push left tool. The forward warp tool works by simply pushing and moving pixels in the direction of the cursor. The push left tool is actually a funny tool to work with, in that if you move the cursor upwards, the pixels shift to the left, and if you move downwards, the pixels shift to the right. I think Adobe could have come up with a much better name for this tool. Maybe Shift Pixels would have been much better. At its default settings, it is very easy to make a mess out of a photograph using Liquify. One of the good things about the Liquify window is that it gives you an undo history, so you can go back through your steps should you make a mistake. The first thing you need to do is to set Liquify to suit your needs. All you need to adjust are the brush density and brush pressure settings. I normally have them at a value of 20. Now if you're working with a Wacom tablet, you can choose to have your brush set to stylus pressure to give you finer control. Like anything, it will take some getting used to, and it will require practice. Let me demonstrate how the forward warp tool works. Aside from using a low strength, you should also use a much larger brush than you think you would need. If you use too small a brush, you will be affecting only a small group of pixels, resulting in a very choppy edge. The larger the brush, the smoother your lines will be. When using Liquify, I like to think of it as massaging pixels into place. I use several gentle short strokes to massage the edges or lines instead of using one big stroke to do it. You have to keep in mind that when overused, Liquify will show signs of pixel stretching, and this is something you want to avoid as much as possible. To minimize this, it is good practice to Liquify on both sides of the line you are correcting, to keep everything balanced. Think of it as doing to one side what you did to the other. That way, the pixels all move together, instead of just stretching one side. Notice also how the center of my brush cursor never touches the actual edge of the line. I am pushing or pulling the area adjacent to the edge. This is important because it allows you to adjust the edge without disturbing its integrity. I reserve the push left tool when correcting a much longer edge, such as the side of a leg or arm. I use the forward warp tool much more often than the push left tool, but some situations will definitely call for one or the other. Like the forward warp tool, use the push left tool in small increments, keeping your strokes short but deliberate. To perform a more subtle shift, line up the edge of the brush with the line you are pushing, keeping the center of the brush further away. I shoot a lot of beauty, and sometimes clients can ask for some pretty impossible proportions in the pursuit of perfection. Many of us, including models, just don't have a perfectly symmetrical face, and it's quite rare to come across. I end up having to use Liquify to fine-tune someone's facial features to meet the client's requests. When retouching straight-on face shots, sometimes I'll use guides to line up everything, and to help me visualize the correction. In this photograph, I framed it a little bit lopsided, which happens quite often because I can't shoot level handheld if my life depended on it. But using the ruler tool, I can easily adjust the horizon and rotate the image arbitrarily. Now that everything is lined up, I can see what needs to be done in order to bring the face into perfect symmetry. You can also use a selection and bring just that area into the Liquify dialog. This greatly speeds things up because Photoshop won't need to render the entire image. Watch as I use Liquify on these photographs. Take note at the size of the brush used for each correction, how often the size is changed, and how small the actual movements are. I hope you've enjoyed this brief tutorial on the Liquify filter. If you remember to use a larger than needed brush at a very low strength and use small pushing movements, with enough practice you shouldn't have any problems with it. Remember to catch up with me on Twitter, Facebook, and my blog. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next F-Stoppers post-production tutorial.